Hello, and welcome to the House of Decline podcast. Once again, I am talking about Palestine and Gaza. I feel compelled to because it is just getting worse and worse and worse, and there seems to be no end in sight. And that's what I wanted to talk about today is like, what is the future for this? What is going to happen? If there isn't a ceasefire soon, or if there isn't, greater intervention from the international community. And to help me answer these questions is a great journalist, writer, excellent podcast guest. I first heard him on Chapo. The Neom episode is an absolute classic. And it's Séamus Malekafzali here. And did I get your name right? I hope.
You nailed it, which I want to commend you for.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I followed your journalism for a while. I heard you recently on a space with Kayvan, still oppressed on Twitter, and my neck hurt from agreeing so much. And I think you're good for this information, and I think you're a good person to ask these questions, which is why I'm very happy to have you on today.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. And so first off, obviously the most recent development that's on everyone's mind, like last Sunday, Rafah was attacked by Israel in the south of Gaza. It was supposed to have been a safe zone. It was designated a safe zone. Israel said it would be a safe zone, but it was then bombed on Super Bowl Sunday in a very strange zone of interest moment. And many have speculated this attack was specifically timed so that American audiences would be distracted while it was occurring. And this discourse was around a lot. I even, retweeted some stuff pertaining to this discourse. And I was wondering, do you think there is any weight to this assertion that it was specifically timed during the Super Bowl so as to capture everyone's distraction?
I'm unsure if it was capitalized on specifically for the Super Bowl itself, but I would not discount it either. I hate to be wishy-washy about that. But I do know that they were aware of this mainly because there were ads that the Israeli government promoted that happened during the Super Bowl. There was an ad about anti-Semitism that played during it. The Israeli Foreign Ministry published a video before the Super Bowl where they specifically said, like, you're enjoying, you're cheering for your favorite team, but there are hostages that are still trapped in Gaza. They obviously care immensely about the American perception of Israel, pretty much every granular detail that pertains to it. It's a thing of like, okay, they wanted to be distracted, but then again, this entire business that we have been enveloped in has been a result of the fact that American audiences, largely speaking, are not moved by what has been happening in Gaza. They hold opinions that there should be a ceasefire, that what Israel is doing is unjustified. But in terms of being moved to action in a large enough capacity that Israel would feel that it could only move if the Super Bowl was happening, I think there's weight to it. I don't want to speak authoritatively about it. Yeah.
But I mean, that was sort of like a pushback that I heard is like, so who is watching the Super Bowl? These are the people watching, CNN mostly, or, stuff that really isn't reporting on Gaza that much. So that's why I thought maybe the assertion that, this was being timed to the average American consumer might have been overstated, even though the fact that it occurred right exactly at the same time was also just, and then the freaking Biden meme that came after the dark Brandon meme.
If there was any, oh my God, my blood boiled when I saw that. It's a perfect encapsulation of how there is a fundamental disconnect between what Biden sees as a priority and what everyone else in the Middle East sees as a priority. And more important to Biden, what Michigan sees as a priority.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
his whole thing is that his campaign is panicking about Michigan and Arab voters and how they're perceiving this. And then, even though he knows it's an issue, he keeps sending out campaign staff. He keeps sending out people to say that it's a wrong perception. And then, when something horrifying happens, it's like, didn't you that crazy thing with Travis Kelsey? It's like he this campaign is objectively going quite badly.
Yes.
I think that's correct to say.
Yeah.
And the White House doesn't know what it's doing, and on top of that, on top of not knowing what it's doing, it's actively malicious in what it's doing, which makes it unfathomably worse.
I think it's like, look, everyone discounts young voters, and especially as I think, like, if I'm getting into the mind of like a Democratic strategist, I'm thinking, so what? Michigan, we can pick up Jewish votes in Florida, and then that'll put us over the edge, or something like that. If I'm thinking like these, like one of these bloodless guys, or like or like the idea that because it's really turning off young people, and I know young people don't vote, but if enough of them don't vote, it's going to hurt you. So do you think that there is, like, how much of this do you think will affect the eventual voting for Biden?
I think there is a good chance. I've said this before. I think there's a really good chance that this is what tips it in favor of Trump if things
Yeah.
don't change. Not in the sense like people when I see American liberals comment online. There seems to be this general perception that they're going to switch from Biden to Trump, which is not the case. It's what you're saying. They're going to just stay home. They're
Yeah.
not going to participate in the process. And if we're talking about something that is as necessary as Michigan to this process, that alone can be the tipping point. And they assume that at the end of this, that eventually, like in 2020, people will rise up to the fact that Trump is not what America needs, and that fundamentally they'll go for Biden again. They'll give him another 4 years, and they'll get the job done, or whatever. But if you believe, as an Arab, as a Palestinian American, even that the treatment under Biden of Palestinians has been identical, if not worse, than Trump during that administration. This is something that
Hmm.
affects your family, likely back in Palestine. What incentive do you have to vote for Trump? Because okay, I see people talking about how, well, I mean, if Trump is in office, then Israel would carpet bomb Gaza. I don't think they actually know what the scale of destruction is in the strip right now.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand that, because again, American news media is not going into detail about this.
Yeah.
If they're not
These
following,
people
yeah,
aren't going on to Times of Gaza. You know, they're
no,
definitely,
no,
you
no,
can, I mean, you can go on there and just see the worst thing you've ever seen in your life daily, and
no.
they
People,
don't get that information.
people, I think see images now and again of the suffering that happens, but then they compartmentalize it under, well, Hamas should just surrender, and then they go on with their day. Or I think about The Guardian in particular, if we're talking about a British paper. There
Hmm.
was a time, I think a few weeks ago, not even that, several weeks ago, when there was fighting around the Khan Yunis, where if you wanted information about Gaza at a time when 200 some people were dying every single day,
Hmm.
far more civilian deaths than were happening in Ukraine at any point, you had to scroll down to the very bottom of the page, and only then would you find a story that was 2 weeks old.
Hmm.
Like, this is not there's a deliberate deprioritization of this
Hmm.
so that people are low information about it. And yeah, from there you get these kind of warped perceptions of what's happening. But people in Michigan, people who are Arab, people who are Palestinian, they get this information.
Hmm.
They understand the full scope of what's happening, and they're not they're like, if you tell someone, oh, it's going to be worse in Gaza under Trump, it's like, how could it be? What is worse
Yeah.
than this?
And this isn't a slouch of a voter base. These people consistently vote. There's like they're very, like, that's how Rashida Tlaib is in fucking Congress to begin with. You know, it's like it's a pretty, it's these 200,000 people really matter.
No, no, people like, like I remember there was a video, and I want to say on CBS, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, where there was someone who had really gone out of his way to promote Biden in 2020, and
Mhm.
he'd explained very reasonably, like, I don't feel like I can support him in 2024 based on this and that issue related to Gaza. And the responses from it were just treating him again like someone who had just like fallen out of the sky and was articulating a completely incoherent opinion that was based on nothing. And these are the people who were responsible for Biden winning in
Mhm.
2020. These were like the fact that Biden would treat Arabs and Muslims better than Trump was at the forefront of that election campaign
Yeah.
because of the Muslim ban, because of everything. If you delete that from your platform, do you like these people? Like, this is a larger discussion, but fundamentally, these are people with These are human beings with thought processes. They respond to what they see in front of them. And when they see something in front of them that is not what they want,
Yeah.
what do you think that they do? I don't know. We can disagree about this, but I think they respond
Yeah,
how
well,
normal people
I mean,
do.
it's the same not just with Arab Americans, but with broadly of young people as well, where it's like, so the argument that I always hear of why we need to keep doing electoralism, or why, it's a harsh pill to swallow, the 99% Hitler arguments, is that which very funny phrase, an all-time great phrase. But yeah, the one that I frequently hear, especially among my queer peers, and it's slightly compelling, is that, look, the trans stuff is about to hit the wall. So, but the other problem with that is when Democrats get in power, they don't do protections. Like, they allow Dobbs to happen. How can you trust them to, like, protect your rights? It's like the voters depressed because Democrats can't actually get progressive legislation into action. So that argument is pretty uncompelling, even for queer people who know that shit's about to hit the fan in terms of like hormone bans and stuff like that.
No,
So, yeah.
and this is an argument that, like, even if I'm thinking of uh like again, swallowing the pill, as you said, if there
Hmm.
were a different Democratic candidate, like let's say Gretchen Whitmer, who's the current governor
Whitmer
of,
of
of
Michigan.
Michigan. Yeah,
Yeah.
great, amazing. I don't like, okay, I'm not like a liberal Democrat, but like if you tell me, hey, if you vote for Gretchen Whitmer, you can stop Donald Trump, like I would have severe problems with her as
Yeah.
a candidate, but like that's a way easier sell
Oh yeah.
than
Well,
Joe
if
Biden. Joe Biden is uniquely under like horrifically bad as a candidate. Even Ezra Klein is saying this. Like
I
there is a
didn't see that.
there
That's
there is a
that's
there
you've lost Vox.
you've
You've
lost
lost.
you've lost this man. Like there was a piece I think just today that Klein put out where he was talking about like I'm having like terrifying visions of tell-all books that come out in 2025 and 2026 where Democratic staffers talk about how we should have done more. Like that's the level of
Yeah.
like panic that people are having, and this is entirely like this is avoidable. This was avoidable, and we've been led into this kind of killing cage
Hmm.
again. I don't know. I don't know.
It's sort of that inescapable gerontocracy of American politics. It was the same with Dianne Feinstein. For some reason, you achieve a certain. I always observed this as a weird part of America where 99% of the elders just get totally abused. Like they just, end a terrible end of life. But if you're in that 1% of elders that make it into some sort of entrenched power, you're there for life. You could be on the slab and they'd still be following your orders, or like using your hand weekend at Bernie style to sign bills or something like that. So it's like, what is it about that entrenched gerontocracy? Why can't we get rid of this? What is it about it? Yeah, I mean, that's a very difficult question. That's like, you got to go back to
God.
like Hobbes or something like that to answer that.
No, I mean these people. If I can only speak to Biden, I mean we forget that in 2020 during the primaries, I mean Bernie won the popular vote in Iowa. one New
Mm-hmm.
Hampshire, one Nevada. What did Biden
Pete
do?
Buttigieg won in Iowa.
Well, okay. Well,
Da,
also,
da, da.
I will say, I was here in Lebanon during the Iowa caucus, and it was immensely satisfying to like turn on like Arab networks,
Mhm.
and you could see that they were talking about election irregularities in America. That was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, when Biden was forced to stand on his own, he got what, fifth in Iowa, and I think sixth in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
Like he's able to, when the DNC is able to wield that influence and just coal everybody. Like, actually, this is the nominee now.
Mhm.
I'm afraid you're all going to have to kind of buckle behind him if you want to stop
Yeah.
even like a shred of social democracy from happening.
Yeah. Obama
I
started making phone calls. Pete, I'm gonna kill you if you don't if you don't step.
Bait, we can't. I'm sorry, we can't. The West Wing is over, son. We're putting you in jail. No, no. It's an incredibly masochistic thing,
Yeah.
and what I fear on some level is what happens when this gerontocracy inevitably dies off,
Mhm.
because there, what is like nothing is being offered to the younger generation. And at the top, I mean, nothing's being built. And then when the top dies off, what does the Democratic Party feasibly offer, like
Mhm.
as an institution? I don't know. This is a larger discussion. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a frightening thing to think about.
It is a frightening thing to think about. I mean, this is going to sound dumb as hell, but there is a
Okay.
phrase that I keep thinking about, and it's from Dragon Ball Z.
All
And
right.
it's something, but it's one that always stuck in my head because I do think it accurately sort of describes cycles of history, which is the flame flickers most violently before it's about to go out, which is what Master Roshi says. And it's like, yeah, I think that's sort of what we're seeing now with Netanyahu is he knows that there's a limited amount of time to get away with something like this. You know, once Biden and the gerontocracy dies out, young people who just inevitably by the dint of time will get into power, you know, people that know about Palestine and who haven't been propagandized. And so he knows that 20, 30 years down the line, this will not be nearly as possible, which is why he's doing this now. Do you think there's any root to this assertion, or do you think like America will still hold on to Israeli hegemony like 30 years from now?
I think that's a good assessment. It's a really interesting sort of like I don't know if the right word is like ships who are passing in the night by each other,
Mm-hmm.
because the young people in America are increasingly pro-Palestine, very like openly pro-Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was an image from I think DC a few weeks ago where someone was flying the flag of Abu Ubaidah, who is the spokesman for Hamas, in the middle of DC.
That wow.
Like that's how much the discourse has shifted from where it
Yeah.
was even when I was a kid, and I'm both elderly and extremely young. Um,
Yeah.
like, uh, uh, so the youth in America is becoming more pro-Palestinian, but the youth in Israel is
Mm.
getting extremely fascistic with every passing generation. Uh, when the protests against Netanyahu happened, the main base of those people who were protesting against a judicial overhaul, which would have, you know, abolished a lot of, uh, uh, I don't know, I forget this exact legal term, but like a lot of safeguards around the
Mhm.
Israeli court system. They were primarily Ashkenazi adults, people above the age of 30.
Yeah.
People who remember a time in Israeli politics in which labor Zionism, uh, things of that nature were more prominent.
Yitzhak Rabin, genocidal, but not as genocidal.
Yeah, like the the genesis of extermination was still there, but it was dressed up maybe a little bit nicer. And there was also a willingness on the part of the politicians to draw a line somewhere. But like, okay, we've exterminated all of these people, we've displaced all these people, but like, okay, we'll give you Gaza, maybe we'll put on the table, we'll give you the West Bank, like maybe sometime in the future. They at least discuss these things openly, even if they never intended for these things to be permanent. That discussion is on its way out completely, entirely. There is a belief with people who have grown up in an Israel that has never lost anything, at least in the mind of them. I mean, we can argue about whether they lost 2006. I would argue they did in Lebanon. But, you know, you grew up in Israel. What have you always heard about? 1967, you conquered Jerusalem, you West Bank, Gaza, you occupied them. You occupied the Sinai Peninsula, went into South Lebanon. You pushed into Syria, into Egypt in the 70s, on the banks of Damascus and Cairo. The whole world buckles when they hear about the IDF, the fearsome IDF. That's the atmosphere in which these people live. And when you live in that sort of atmosphere, you believe that you are capable of anything, and that you should, the land of Israel, the biblical land of Israel, however far it stretches into the Middle East, it belongs to you. And when October 7th happened, and Hamas brought the battle inside Israel itself, which no other Arab country had ever done before, that sort of humiliation, as you said, with Master Roshi, the flame grows intense, very intense, as it starts to burn out. And now there is a feeling that they need to finish the job in Gaza, and that the West Bank should be annexed. Because there is a belief that this is time limited. Like the timeline in which we wanted to achieve this goal has been shortened immensely, and this is both an opportunity for us to do what we need to do, what we feel that we need to do, which we've been saying has always been a danger that we need to take care of, but also it is incredibly perilous, because at a certain point, governments will say that enough is enough, even if they brought it to this point. Like you see, Germany, one of the biggest backers of Israel in this, to a sycophantic degree. They're saying that there shouldn't be an offensive in Rafah. Canada, Australia, New Zealand saying there needs to be a ceasefire right now. There is a belief that Rafah, in particular, will be the moment in which the cameras will be on Palestine and the images that erupt from it will be impossible to ignore, and that the justification, based on the fact that these are terrorists, that there are 4 Hamas battalions that need to be destroyed, that there is no possible justification for this, and that what Israel wants, which, according to the Wall Street Journal, is to send either Palestinians into Egypt or to put them on boats from which they can go to Europe, which, good fucking luck convincing anyone to do that.
They know what's going to happen if you do that. You might as well die if you're gonna be displaced anyway. You know.
Yeah, there is an understanding of what these images will entail to the larger world, and they believe that if they can do this within the window of October 7th was so horrible, that's why we need to exterminate this entire race. If they can do it within that window, they believe they will be able to save Israel's reputation. I don't think that's the case. I think Israel's reputation is sealed, at least where I live. It wasn't great before. Let's just say.
But this is that. No, they're Nazis.
This is beyond the pale.
They're definitely Nazis. This is like, you can't deny that anymore. It's just a pure fascist country.
In Gulf countries, I mean, Saudi Arabia, this was a country that was on the verge of normalization with Israel. They were forced to pull back from it. And a lot of Saudis, even if they didn't like Israel, they had grown to believe that economic relations were acceptable, that even if Israel is a nation that we should oppose, maybe there's a way to integrate with here. And now it's rolled back the clock.
Golden Arches theory does not work. It does absolutely does not work.
Nope. This is something Israel. This is a country that is capable of understanding the predicament that it has placed itself in only after it has stuck its head inside the beehive.
Hmm.
And even then, its second thoughts are only at what hour should we initiate the campaign of murder. Um, when they talk about invading Lebanon again, when they talk about when they're going to go for what Netanyahu calls the total final victory,
Yeah,
they
that was disturbing. That was
like
very final solution-esque.
that's literally like Enzig. Like
Yeah.
that's what Hitler was talking about, and and Goebbels was talking about. Um, like there's no perception that Israel should come back from the brink from this, because America, despite all that it says, that Biden, Jesus, there have been like 20 articles over the past 3 months where it's like, what, Biden called Netanyahu like a fuck or something. Like, I hate that guy. But
Yeah.
like, okay, he calls him that behind the scenes, but then he, you know, not only gives Israel all the weapons it wants, but goes around Congress multiple times to give him that money. Like, Israel doesn't feel like it needs to pull back from any of this at all. Why should it? This is the battle plan thinking that it produces.
I mean, what I found very interesting was that so the big compact of Western countries that are really the biggest Israel backers are like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's U.S., Canada, UK, and Germany, and those are basically the four. Even other Central European countries, like France, is less amenable to Israel, or like I don't know why, maybe because or something like. But they don't seem to. I mean, I'm probably getting that wrong. Actually, they're probably
I mean, slightly. I mean, Macron, right now, at least yesterday, at least might have been actually today, was talking about how Israel shouldn't go into Rafah, and also they have a socialist. They have socialist parties, so they actually need to,
yeah,
stop from making problems, which is not the case in Germany,
yeah.
where even the successor party to the East German ruling party is unbelievably pro-Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
We found a way to be, do reparations for the Holocaust and do genocide. So this is works out great for us.
This is welfare. Huh?
Yeah.
It's good.
Did you see that freaking German float of
Oh, there
the?
were multiple. There was the one where the Hamas fighters were pushing the Palestinians in front of an Israeli tank, and then there was another one where there was a Palestinian. There was a dog who was labeled hate, where
Mhm.
the color was the Palestinian flag colors. Like,
Jesus.
and there was another float at a different city where I think it literally. I may be getting this wrong because it's been a few days since I've seen it, but either they were playing a song or it was written on the float "Foreigners Out," and it
Uh,
was in the form of Legos. Like, it was a
uh,
Lego float. I don't understand. I don't
One, that's
understand.
Danish. That's not even your country. So if you,
When you're white, I guess it's like
it's fine.
both. I don't know. I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It
But
doesn't.
yeah,
Nobody ever said that fascism was consistent. I
yeah, it just
think.
molds to whatever you need to power formulation you need at the time. But that's what's also interesting to me about this is like this has been like a huge. We were talking about media strategy and Israeli media strategy, but it's astonishing to me how sophisticated Hamas's media strategy is. Just in like terms of like in terms of like propaganda, right? Is about projecting sort of power and integrity and honor, right? And if you're doing that, Hamas's propaganda is doing laps around Israel. Israel's propaganda and why they're using young people is their TikToks make them look like cackling diarrhea ass villains, you know? Whereas like the Hamas propaganda, they do the red triangles, they're murking them. It's two guys murking a Merkava tank. You have like the underdog, overdog set up already. It's like I like and to me that's like deliberate on their part because they know that they can win a ground war against Israel because Israel sucks at fighting a ground war, but Israel can also just bomb them to hell, so they can't win an extended war against them necessarily. So media strategy is a huge component of it. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah. No. These, like, I was brought up, and I think a lot of people were brought up with the idea that Israel's PR strategy was like second to none.
Yeah.
And for a while, I mean, it wasn't necessarily sophisticated. Like, I look back on a lot of what they did, and it's not terribly different from what they're doing now. But they knew, I think, when to keep their mouth shut better.
Yeah.
And they absolutely do not have that ability now. They cannot. There's no discipline among IDF soldiers, which is good for like us,
Yeah.
because this has been instrumental in, I think, destroying the perception that Israeli soldiers have of being like the very best of the best.
Yeah,
But it's
they're
bad
not
for,
Munich.
yeah.
This isn't Munich.
No,
This
no, no,
is
no, 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 no. These guys, these, oh my god, like,
it's like the Three Stooges are IDF, and it's
oh god, fascist Three Stooges. What a fucking mess. No, but and I think they know to some degree how good the Hamas propaganda strategy is for two reasons. One, in that they've literally tried to replicate the Red Triangle thing with their own videos, at least published by their Arabic language spokesman. Like, okay, in every Hamas Red Triangle video you see, which, by the way, there is Red Triangle graffiti in a lot of places around the city.
yeah.
Like, it's a phenomenon for sure. And
It's
so
very effective media strategy. They came up with a really good symbol.
It's very simple. And in every single video you see, why does that triangle appear? It's because there is a tank, there is a soldier, and that is it. And you see it because the Hamas fighter in the video is about to hit it with a rocket or with a sniper rifle or something. And you almost always see the visible enemy in that video. If you don't see the impact, you at least see the enemy specifically. When Israel tried to replicate this with their own response, where they did either a blue triangle, because Israel, blue in the flag, or they literally did the Star of David as the reticle, which that's fucking insane.
Yeah, putting a Star of David on a Palestinian. Why do these people not recognize they're doing the Holocaust again?
It's literally like, this is a video that like the Daily Show would make.
Yeah,
like that's fucking insane. And well, and even then, very rarely in any video that the IDF puts out do you see like physical Hamas fighters. I haven't seen every single video they've put out. I've maybe only seen like 2 or 3 videos where like there is a Hamas fighter that is identifiable and is shooting. And the IDF has put out, probably hundreds of videos of its soldiers in combat at this point. And when they put out the blue reticle videos, it's just buildings getting blown up. It's not Hamas fighters getting blown up. It's just infrastructure getting targeted by tanks or by airstrikes. And when the IDF puts out videos of its soldiers fighting, they're very often, you don't see any enemy fighters. You just see them firing at empty schools or inside stairwells, or they're running. And they're not running into battle at the forefront. They're running clearly after tanks have gone through, because they don't like to get out of the tanks. How do we know they don't like to get out of the tanks? Because there are Hamas videos where the fighters are able to get up right to the tank because there's no infantry support around it. Like, this is not
Mickey Mouse Army. This freaking fucking Mickey Mouse Army. What are they doing?
No, this is a media strategy that Israel has tried to counter. And with a domestic audience, certainly it works. With an American audience, there are millions practically of journalists who are more than willing to take the IDF if they're worried about everything. They don't need to do much. But with Arabs, who they're trying to taunt, or maybe trying to influence on some level, they're failing horribly, because they have no idea. Like, I don't mean to be propagandistic when I say this, but what I see, and we can disagree on this again.
Yeah, we'll see.
When I see a Hamas fighter emerge out of a tunnel and then place a tank round directly on top of an armored vehicle and then shoot it,
yes,
and then go back into the tunnel. When I compare that to a video of an IDF soldier firing into the air somewhere where the camera is angled at such a way as to I can't see what he's shooting at, like there's 2 levels here.
Yes,
where I am inspired. Theoretically, I'm someone watching these 2 videos. There's one where I'm wow, that's crazy. That's an insane thing for a guy to do. And then there's, oh, okay, he's just shooting at something.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
all right.
it's very interesting how much better, like, and you're a cinema fan too, but it's like classic show don't tell, right?
Yeah.
It's very
There's no
much like, oh
narration.
no,
There's
yeah,
no there's no like there's no like I think of this is a real deep cut, but my cinema majors will respect me for talking about this.
hmm,
Like we're talking about like the old school communist propaganda from like the 70s and 80s
yeah,
during the Lebanese Civil War. Like these fucking people loved talking about theory. They loved like long speeches, and you barely see anything.
hmm,
It's not good. Here, almost no narration. There's literally maybe someone does a speech for like 5 seconds.
yeah,
Literally, all of it is just you see a clearly identifiable enemy,
hmm,
and then they get shot, and that's it. There's no fluff. There's no there's it's all meat. None of
yeah,
it is no bone. It's good stuff.
yeah.
If you are like someone who is trying to create military propaganda, it's smart.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't
yeah.
disagree with you on this. I think Hamas knows that it, especially because it knows it's not going to appeal to Israeli children or children, but young people. But I think it knows that it appeals to American young people, and that's going to be important for the future because eventually these young people will get into power, and if they just directly see something like I see the thing that I hear most from like 20 somethings is why they're pro Palestine is because, yeah, TikToks, which is bizarre, but it works, yeah, that media strategy and the fact that they're so much better at media strategy has, I think, really played an important role
No, no, no.
in this current conflict.
TikTok in particular. I mean, I can only speak a little bit about this, but I've also been shocked at like how important TikTok has been for disseminating opinions about Palestine to a very wide audience, like an immense audience that I wasn't aware of before.
Hmm.
And I think it is changing opinion, which is also why I think American politicians are getting more intense about banning it,
Hmm.
which is a different
Yeah, that's
discussion. But
another episode. We'll do that on the China episode. But yeah, so I think obviously Gaza's front and center, as it should be, but we're sort of talking about because this conflict doesn't seem to be ending. They keep rejecting ceasefire proposals from Hamas. As we said before, this is like they're going to try and push this as far as it can go before something happens to stop it. But I don't know what that's going to be. But I think one of the most worrying things is that Israel has already attacked Lebanon this time, and if this conflict extends beyond Gaza, it seems like Lebanon's going to be the first to get it. Do you think there's truth to this, or are you worried on the ground on Lebanon, or like what's the tenor there?
I mean, I think it's going to happen. I think like I'm 90, 85, 90% sure that something's going to happen in the south of Lebanon at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in Beirut, though, where I live, it's a really different story. And I think it's illustrative of a lot of things about Lebanese history. Um, like, I've said this before, but Beirut and South Beirut, where there's a lot of Hezbollah influence, a lot of Hezbollah voters, these are different universes
Yeah,
practically.
yeah.
Like and it's difficult to like articulate that to Westerners. Like when Saleh al-Aruri, the Hamas deputy chair, was assassinated in a drone strike. Um, and like I would tell people like people would contact me. It's like Seamus, are you okay? And I would say, yeah, I mean it's fine. It was like 2 miles away from me. And
Yeah.
to me, when I say that, that sounds like a really far away location. But
Hmm.
when anybody else hears that, like that's insanely close to
Yeah.
a military engagement. Um, no, it's people perceive here in Lebanon that what affects South Lebanon, what affects Shias in particular,
Hmm.
does not affect the whole, and that has like at least where I am in my neighborhood, which
Hmm.
people listening can't see this, but if you look behind me, uh, there's a Virgin Mary statue here. I did not buy that. That came with the apartment.
Very, very
Um,
Christian part, the Peter
yeah,
Dow part of Lebanon.
yeah. No, literally, there is. When I walk 5 minutes away from my house, I'm in Sassine Square, and in Sassine Square there are two huge memorials to Bashir Gemayel. And for history aficionados, Bashir Gemayel was the president-elect of Lebanon, whose assassination led to the Sabra and Shatila massacres. Like, if we're talking about pro-Palestine neighborhoods of this city, this is not one of them.
Mm,
Um, like with people who support parties like Kataib, the Lebanese forces, there is a perception that Hezbollah is the one who's dragging Lebanon into this war, and that the Palestinians should leave, and that it's Wazi and it's a Wuz, and it's all
hmm
nonsense. But that is the perception among it. But otherwise, if we're just talking about general anxieties, I don't really sense it. Um, War has been, a pretty constant, uh, aspect of this country's modern history. I mean, there
hmm
was the Lebanese Civil War, and
Yep.
then there was the war in 2006 with Israel. There was a conflict in 2008 where Hezbollah and other militias battled here in the city. There was the Syrian civil war where there
hmm
was spillover into this country. Um, Everybody you talk to has a story about what conflicts they lived through, what they did, and there's certainly worries about what will happen, but it's not something like if I think about a similar situation happening in America or in Canada, I
hmm
would anticipate like a real sense of societal upheaval. Whereas, I
hmm
mean, there aren't any runs on the grocery store. There aren't, there's not panic in the streets.
Yeah.
People go about their days for the most part.
That's very interesting. Do you think there is like a sense of protection that Beirut has because it is so internationalized and very pent up within the international capitalist system? Or because one of the most fascinating things that I remember reading this thing that Josh Edinger Mentum posted, and he was talking about it was how Reagan is actually to the left of Biden on this because when Begin was bombing Beirut in 1982, like Reagan gave him a phone call and was like, "You're making us look bad. You can't do this." Do you think the fact that Lebanon is is an internationally recognized state and has some sort of interconnection with the international world gives it some sort of protection or yeah
This is actually a really interesting question, and this is a point of some debate.
yeah
I know within Israeli circles who have talked about this. Um, South Beirut, that can get bombed to oblivion without anybody caring. There's a
yeah
perception in the news media that it's a Hezbollah stronghold, that therefore anything goes. And furthermore, the Lebanese government's not going to protect it. Um, with Beirut proper in particular, it wasn't bombed very much during 2006. I think only a handful of strikes. Um,
it
I,
wasn't
I,
bombed
I,
very much. Oh my!
I
I
mean,
mean, the
I mean,
standards are so different.
the standards are very low, but like it
Yeah,
is sort of a standard. Like there's a line that can't be
yeah,
crossed that Israel perceived there to be. Um, I wish I had like a more authoritative answer, but I don't know. Like, yes, it's an internationally recognized capital. The government here in Lebanon is one that is at least attempting to be friendly with other countries in Europe and in
yeah,
North America. Um, but also, I mean, I personally don't think that even if war is almost inevitable here in this country, I still, to a similar percentage, I don't think it will affect where I am specifically. There is always a chance that Israel, because it's been able to do this kind of thing unfettered,
yeah,
continues on into Beirut and does what Yov Galant, the defense minister, has said, and then Netanyahu has said that they're going to turn Beirut into Gaza or into Khan Yunis.
yeah,
Um, like, I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, at least in this part of the city. But
yeah.
after this, I don't think anything's off the table with like complete certainty.
Yeah, we're really in the Hitler in the bunker moment. It feels like, and where he's just making strange decisions. Where if you're interested in self preservation, this is probably not starting a fight with everybody is not the way to go about it.
No, no. Lebanon in particular. I mean, this is still fucking insane to me. Because Hamas has already proven through October 7th that it was much more military capable than I think many people thought,
Hmm.
um, including a lot of people who observe Palestine with far more intensity than I do. Um, but even then, I mean, this is a group that did not have really any targeting missile capabilities. Didn't have heavy armor. Didn't wasn't nearly as trained as other
Hmm.
groups are on the resistance axis, and then is still given Israel a huge headache from which it is trying desperately to extract itself from in some form or another.
Yeah.
Hezbollah, on the other hand, this is a group that literally everyone acknowledges is well trained, has far better equipment than Hamas does, has weapons stocks which are gargantuan. Um, it is basically a conventional army,
Hmm.
almost, and it is far more powerful than Lebanon's military itself. Um, any war with Hezbollah in its current state is going to be uh, immensely damaging to the Israeli state. Uh, Completely. There's no doubt about this in my mind. Um, this is a group that has the capability to fire thousands, literally thousands of rockets into Israel, not just for hours at a time like Hamas was able to do on October 7th,
Hmm.
but can do it continuously for days. And it has been able to penetrate into Israeli airspace and hit buildings without activating the Iron Dome.
Hmm.
It's been able to hit pinpoint strikes at Israeli military infrastructure. Like, we are talking devastation within Tel Aviv, within Haifa,
Hmm.
northern command of the Israeli military, devastated, um, significant civilian casualties. And yet you see polls of the Israeli public just today saying that, like, war with Lebanon, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I don't,
Fascist death urge. They just want
it's,
to fight and die. That's all they want to do.
they really think this is like gonna, like, Gaza went like well, quote unquote, well for them. They didn't have to feel it as much. So,
Yeah.
like, I guess Lebanon, we could just do this, like, no problem. What was
Yeah.
everybody getting scared about?
But also, not just Lebanon. They killed five top Iranian guys in Syria. Why are you trying to start the famously uninvadable Iran? The famously, you can never win a war in this country. Why are they trying to do that? Why?
I think they. This is a thing of, like, I don't think Israel wants to invade Iran directly. I don't think it has that capability, like, at all. But it would love if the U.S. would invade Iran, but on its
Yeah.
behalf. And if it can draw America into that, it'd be very happy. There's a perception that Iran, at the head of this whole thing, resistance axis, biggest player in that sort of quasi
Yeah,
alliance.
that's what
And
my
if you
Fox News
take,
dad believes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I mean, if you take out the head of the snake,
Right.
then you do. I'm trying to do the affect of, like, Netanyahu when he was trying to advocate for Iraq to get invaded.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, uh, if you take out the head of the snake, uh, democracy will reign. Like, there's a belief that if Iran is removed from the equation, that Palestine, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, all these different countries will be much easier to deal with. And yes, of course, that would degrade their capabilities immensely. Iran
Hmm.
funds a lot of these groups, but I don't need to tell you. I hope I don't need to tell you
Yeah.
that a war with a regional power by America, assisted by Israel,
Yeah.
is going to be more immensely destabilizing than anything else you could possibly
Yeah.
concoct. I mean, look what fucking happened in Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean, it like
A million
you get.
dead. You want a million dead? I
Yeah,
guess
well,
they
no,
do.
no, we want even more. We want look. There's no end to the myopia that Israel likes to project. I mean, a
Mhm.
few weeks before October 7th, maybe not even that, Netanyahu was at the UN and he presented a map to everyone because he
Mhm.
loves infographics,
Sure.
and it said a new Middle East. And he pointed out all
Ugh.
these countries that had made peace with Israel over the past few years. And it's like, we're charting a new path forward. Everybody likes us. Good times forever. We're going
Mhm.
to, like,
Abraham Accords. It's all good. 1,000 years Israel.
that. and, like there was a perception among Americans, among Israelis, that the Palestinians would be content to live in a cage for the rest of their lives, and they would die, generations would come and go. It's fine. We'll take some
It's fine.
rockets
Yeah,
now and
yeah, they'll
again.
take yeah.
Look,
Hey, it worked for America with its indigenous population, so it's
yeah, there's an immense arrogance here that permeates everything, and I was about to name something extremely a really intelligent piece of criticism about Marx, and then I entirely forgot it. But it was like it's a long term theory that
Mhm.
Israel will succeed, right? And
Yeah.
that it keeps getting interrupted by short term failures, short term failures that are entirely self inflicted
Mhm.
by the Israeli state against itself, where it believes that maybe if I just like turn up the pressure a little bit more, they'll
Yeah.
abandon all their dreams of national dignity and freedom, and they'll acquiesce to being our slaves.
Yeah.
I don't. That doesn't usually work, but we can disagree. Again, we can disagree.
I,
I love
no,
democracy.
I agree. I'm fully on board. I'm nodding my head from agreeing so much. I say that again. But I mean, that's the other thing about the perception of Iran is like, look, no one likes the imams, but they've been like far more rational. Like, remember when Trump just murdered that guy? He murdered the general, and then they didn't do anything because they know that escalation is bad and would be bad for everybody, just in terms of like rational leadership. Like, it's hard to say that Iran is like doing worse than Israel. In fact, they're
No,
doing much better, it seems.
no, like okay. The thing that a lot of Hezbollah supporters have had to deal with in terms of discourse is like, why isn't Hezbollah doing enough? There was a perception that once Gaza was invaded, that they would go into the north of Israel and they put a stop to all this.
Hmm.
The thing that they've been talking about is that the resistance axis benefits nothing from going in hog wild with no plan. So they've been you know uh, doing pincer firing at Israeli military installations, showing their capabilities and diverting Israeli military resources, while still maintaining the situation that currently exists in Lebanon, where it's not all-out war. Um, in Iran, they're content at this point to not try and escalate things any further because, again, nothing has benefited from Iran. Again, going just like balls to the walls into Israel to put a stop to all this, even though people would like that. That's not going to solve the situation. That's going to make
Mm-hmm.
things that's going to make things infinitely worse. And uh, with Iran specifically, yeah, I mean, when Soleimani was assassinated, there was a ballistic missile barrage onto Al Assad air base in Iraq. But again, with Hezbollah, this is a show of capability. This is a show like, if you take the situation further, we can do this at every single other base in Iraq. Like, we can force you out of this country if that is what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is what a country that knows its strength does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, you're correct. This stands in stark contrast to Israel, that has never seen a war it didn't want to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it gets into a war that turns out to be much harder than it thought it was, gets rabidly angry and starts lashing out at college students inside the United States.
Yeah.
Like, one faction in the world holds the rope, as it were, of
Mhm.
escalation, and Israel and the United States keep yanking it to see what other people will do. And then they get angry when they don't respond with immense retaliation, which then means that they have to create the
Keep yanking it.
conditions in which, yeah, in which they have to respond. And then, oh, teacher, they did it. Look at them, they did it. They fired the rockets. We have to go in. We have to kill them all.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
that, yeah,
that's whole like that whole like it's the nerd bully. You know what I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about? Like a little nerd who antagonizes everybody, and then it's or that tweet which is, I'm a little birthday boy. I'm a little birthday. It's that
Don't hurt
and that
me.
that just uniquely without honor, uniquely without character or
No, I
integrity.
don't. I've been talking too much about this, but like, uh, Israel, like Israeli rhetoric in particular, on Twitter, on in the news, it's you can see the indignance that it responds with whenever it is questioned about anything. It's a unique kind of arrogance that is only produced if, as I believe Gideon Levy talks about this. It's the only fascist state that believes itself to be both the absolute victor and also the absolute victim. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. Which is crazy
Yeah,
because that's the Nazi impression of the Jews, the most
it's
powerful and the little rats and worms, you know?
yeah, it's well. I mean, that's a different discussion about how like you'll sometimes go into like Israeli forums on Reddit, and I remember there was a meme that someone posted where they complained about the fact that the Nazis said that they shouldn't belong in Europe, and then they left, and then everybody got mad that they left Europe, and it's like, were the Nazis right? What are you saying?
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Like like you've been sold a false bill of goods here,
Yeah.
and it's again. I saw a tweet from Kojat just today, which for those who don't know is the authority that handles Palestinian affairs in the West Bank and now in Gaza because of reasons. And they posted about how the UN was leaving aid at the border within Gaza. They need to scale up their operations. Just a few hours earlier, the UN had posted video of destroyed UN facilities from Israeli airstrikes.
Yeah.
They can't just win. That's for normal fascist states. They can't always be winning.
Yeah.
You know, ISIS to the very end, they were posting about from like their little hovels and Baghuz in this tiny little village on the river in Syria. They were talking about how we're going to conquer the world, guys. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Israel does the absolute victory thing, but then it's like, why isn't everyone helping us? Why isn't everyone in the world helping us while we also antagonize the entire earth? Do you hate us? Are you anti-Semitic to us? Why are
Mm-hmm.
you helping the Nazis? Why do you love Hamas? Why do you hate America? Why don't you leave this country that you hate?
Yeah.
It's a constant barrage of intense malignant narcissism that is infuriating to read day in and day out. But I do it because I love all my readers.
No, yeah. It's hey, it's your beat. It's your journalism beat. And you suffer so that you can summarize it so we don't have to read it.
I have the most noble profession in the entire world. I definitely don't hate
Honestly,
myself.
well, I mean, you joke about that, but look at all the Gazan journalists I'm sorry, they're heroes. They're just straight
No,
up
no,
freaking
no,
heroes.
no. Okay, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. I'm so sorry. But
No,
like,
no, it's fine.
Gazan journalists, the fucking disparity
Yeah.
between what these people are doing and what American journalists in America are expected to be lauded for. I mean, it's no question. I
Yeah.
mean, why the fuck? Who's that fucking guy? Jim Acosta, I think,
Yeah.
in CNN back in America. Like we were expected for years that this guy is like the fucking guy because he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Sir, no, sir, please answer my question" to Trump at press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Like these people stayed silent while journalists in the Gaza Strip were being murdered en masse in targeted strikes, either on
Mm-hmm.
them or on their families. And I'm supposed to like go back after all this when Trump probably gets
Yeah.
reelected and say like, oh no, these are the real heroes. It's like,
Yeah, it's not I mean the disparity, it's like I'm a little afraid on college campuses versus this guy, all 17 members including children of this guy's family were killed and he's still reporting day to day, you know? It's like how can you it's I mean that is like the crux of anti-proportional thought, which is at the heart of sort of all conservatism, but just the inability to recognize when something is much graver than something else, you know, just that fundamental lack of proportionality that is in a lot of that undergirds Zionist and imperialist thought. um I think, you know, as we go out, we've been talking for an hour. I wanted to talk about, I don't know if it makes me hopeful, but it at least is important to get documents which show history and can be entrenched permanence. I don't know if it does anything, and obviously it didn't do anything immediately to stop the killing in Gaza. But what do you think the effect of the ICJ decision was? And was it worth just pursuing it to begin with, just to have, you know, witness to this atrocity? Or do you think it affected anything that much?
this is a difficult one. I think, but this is a more larger discussion about like, is resistance worth it?
Yeah.
That's a bigger question here, because if we talk about the ICJ ruling, this was a significant victory.
Mm,
Israel was brought before the halls of international justice, which is a system that has been rigged against the global South for decades since its inception, and within the rules that Israel had agreed to set for itself, it was found to be guilty. And Israel felt that it needed to lash out in such a significant way to defund UNRWA,
yeah.
the Palestinian Refugee Association, that it felt it needed to do this, to push this, meant that it meant something significant.
Another
Um,
humiliation.
Another humiliation.
Yeah.
And if we want to talk about like in real terms, like material terms, sure. I mean, Israel felt that it needed to pull the rug out from an incredibly critical refugee association, and it would intensify the suffering the Palestinians have suffered. But to say that it shouldn't have been pursued at all, I think would leave us in a much graver situation, because it would have also communicated to Israel that it can operate with even more impunity. Every piece of sand
Hmm.
in Israel's eye, I think, is worth it,
Hmm.
mainly because they care so deeply about it. We talk about like, and even I get down to the dumps about this, but it says something about Israel's priorities when a student protester on campus, thousands of miles away from Israeli shores, can get posted on the Israeli government's official social media channels because they were so angry at it.
Hmm.
I think it says something that when I post something about how much I hate some Israeli government spokesperson, that spokesperson name searches and then finds my tweet because they care so much about this. Is a real thing that happened
So
with
name searching is the ultimate freak behavior. That's
yeah.
how you know. That's how you know.
These are the sorts of people that inhabit the Israeli government, right? They care so much about their public image. They are frustrated eternally that they are not accepted as a member of the international community as other countries are. It's why they call Ben and Jerry's agents of terrorism, because they won't sell in Israeli settlements.
Yeah.
That's why they say that literally everyone is Hamas if they don't agree with them.
And Hamas is of course ISIS.
Of course,
So
well, worse than ISIS. Let's not. That's a whole.
yeah.
I remember that. Oh my god, that was a stupid
Yeah.
discussion. But like every single action that emphasizes rightfully that Israel is a state that is an aberration, like within the already aberrant structure in which we live, uniquely so. Um, that is like to point that out, to point out that fact. That is a good thing. because it forces Israel onto the defenses and it makes them show how awful they are continuously. And that is what is propelling change in the younger generation. That is propelling change within American people generally. I mean, the poll
Yeah.
numbers that we see right now about ceasefires, about Israel's conduct, they're unprecedented in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a good thing. I don't want to get
Yeah.
too down in the dumps about it, but it's a good thing.
No, yeah, it is a good. I mean, the problem you're always going to face is there are, like you said, like little grains. There is this sort of frustratingly incremental quality to this, because I'm sure the fantasy that you've had, that we've all had, is I'm going to go over there like Brace goddamn Belden, and I'm going to put my body in front of children because that's what needs to happen, because I don't want any more dead children. And I'm sure you've had that fantasy before of like, but you know that you can't do that for many reasons. And so it just exists in fantasy. I mean, I think that's why a lot of us, felt, we're gunning for the Houthis. That's why it's like, yeah, man, you're
Oh
doing
my
it.
God. Somebody did something.
Yeah.
Somebody, like the poorest nation on earth,
Yeah.
like in the Middle East, sorry, like they were able to put forward like little tiny boats and cheap missiles and rockets, and they were able to basically close off an entire waterway to American, British, and Israeli linked ships.
Yeah.
Like that gives me hope. That
Yeah.
like there's something. What frustrates me is that the tide isn't turning fast enough, nearly fast enough. But I would feel immensely more depressed, inconsolable,
Mhm.
if this wasn't happening. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine what the world would be like if
Yeah.
we were still in a situation in which Yemen was ruled by a different government, or
Mhm.
someone else is in office in America.
Yeah, I mean, I always have like the people or liberals hand wringing about the whole Houthi thing, which is, their government is Islamist and bad, and I'm like, I don't care. They're doing the thing that I want to do, but I'm too chicken shit to do because I don't want to get arrested.
like I this is something that admittedly I'm not like consistent about, but
Yeah,
like you said, if someone is doing something like objectively good,
yeah,
I will put aside any other, like this is the definition of what like your annoying leftist friend talks about with critical support for
yeah,
like some other country.
yeah,
This is like what this is for.
yeah.
I no.
They're doing the good thing. They're doing the good thing, and
like
with minimal violence too. That's what's crazy. Is
no
they didn't
injuries,
even. Yeah,
no deaths. Like it. You know that this was a good thing because when when the United States were forced to talk about why they were striking Yemen, like, did you see the statement that Biden put out when the first
I
airstrikes
didn't. I
happened?
didn't. No.
Oh my God. This fucking thing. I wish I had it in front of me. It was a statement that essentially said that Houthis are stopping shipping, but it even said that if they didn't do this, then there would be delays in shipping times. Have you ever heard of a military engagement occurring because someone was afraid that supply lines might be delayed for a couple weeks? Like
Yeah.
they have to say these things because if they say what it's actually about, people will go and say, "Oh, I mean, if nobody else is doing something, that sounds fine." I
Yeah, they
mean,
didn't. You're telling me they didn't kill anyone? Is what?
no
What?
injuries. The hostages seem to be doing fine.
Yeah, they're giving like thumbs up on TikToks and stuff like that.
I don't understand what I'm supposed to be like opposed to in this
Yeah,
respect.
but no, they got a bad guy. They're Islamists. They got a bad government. It's the pirate guy. He was Hassan. Yeah,
Abdel Malik El Houthi and his band of pirates and nefarious beings compromised the integrity of the Red Sea and all that inhabited. No.
people say he was very hot. He was very hot. The pirate. One thing, he was a
It
small
was
boy.
it was gorgeous, but I like them when they don't do the piracy. I like ships. I like the big ships.
I mean, I've almost had this like nightmare vision, which I know is not going to happen because like Trump is obviously just as Zionist as Biden, but like this nightmare vision of like Trump somehow running to the left of Biden on Gaza, on like they made us, Netanyahu made us look weak. He made us look weak. You know, that's obviously not. That's
no.
like
I mean, it's an interesting. Again, I'm not going to disagree with you on the basis of like, yeah, Trump is going to come out and be like, you know, pro Hezbollah, pro Palestinian, or whatever. But the historian Rashid Khalili had a really interesting point that he talked about in an interview recently, where Biden is uniquely bad on Palestine because he is sacrificing American interests to support Israel. And by American interests, of course, it just means like America's image.
Yeah,
and it's definitely
he's
taking
fucking with the money. He's fucking with the money right now.
He's fucking up bad with this.
Becoming an international pariah, generally, Japan is against this. Do you know how hard it is to activate Japan politically?
It's not go. Let's say cynically, let's say it's not being executed well. Yeah. And Trump, on the other hand, is someone who values personal stakes before anything. Mm-hmm. And he's a very suggestible man. So if Netanyahu gets on his bad side or disagrees with him, that can be a point of pressure. Mm-hmm. But not what Khalili was saying, but what I'm saying, like, you know, conversely, if Netanyahu gets on his good side, then he can convince him to do anything. But also, I've also said this before, like, I truly do believe that if you got Trump and Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, in the same room, Trump would come out of that meeting saying that Iran should be like given nukes. Like, this is not a man with like a consistent political philosophy. Really?
No. I mean, he hated Kim Jong-un at first, and then he met him, and it was like, you know what, he's fine.
There was a video. I remember this video where he's in North Korea. He's fucking in North Korea.
Yeah.
Trump. We forget that this happened. He went to North Korea, and he goes to North Korean general, and the general goes out to shake his hand. And then Trump doesn't do that and instead salutes him. Like, this is not a man like who is he's mostly predictable, but he's not completely predictable. And it's like, okay, I have a guy. Okay, like this is not a great choice for Americans to have to make. It's like, okay, I can vote for Biden, and I can vote for a situation in which Israel is going to be given all the support that it wants, and there's maybe a chance that Blinken or Kirby or somebody sees what's happening and says, okay, there's like a firm line that we can't cross here.
Yeah,
you can hope for that, or you can go for Trump. And you can say, okay, there's a chance that he makes this infinitely worse, or there's a chance, maybe, cat scratch in hell, that Netanyahu pisses him off, and then he says, no weapons for you. That is a terrible choice.
Yes.
Like for Americans to have to make. It's an impossible choice.
Yeah, you can't don't vote for Trump. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Like that. The risks associated with that I don't. Please do not risk associated that. But it's just like, this is not the fact that America has been led to this position. Yeah. Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Like, if you put in front of me, hey, Séamus, great news, I have your mail-in ballot. Please either vote for Adolf Hitler or Heinrich Himmler.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I don't like this ballot at all. Please give me another one.
Yeah.
That's personally my take.
Yeah.
I would like a different candidate that I could vote for who could feasibly win, but we don't. And that's...
The Cornel West thing really didn't take off.
No. Cornel. Okay. Oh, geez. The people. This is a different discussion, but the People's Party. I don't know what the fuck that was. Did you see anything about this?
Yeah. Well, Peter Dow again. He was campaign managing because he's most interesting man in the world. Yeah, you didn't know about Peter Dow's association?
He
continues to be the most interesting man in the world.
Oh
You
my
know,
God. Is he
from
still campaign manager?
no, I think he dropped out or something. And then there was some kerfuffle over about what went wrong with it. But yeah, what a guy, you know, Lebanese child soldier, friend of Frankie Knuckles, ultimate resistance Democrat, you know, incredible person. Uh,
God.
but yeah, that was a mess. I mean, I wish there was like a viable third party. My fantasy has always been is Jesse Ventura. He's gonna be the one. And obviously not.
I have the documents that prove that Biden and Trump are Democrats and Republicrats.
No. Jesse. Oh, brief side story that
Yeah.
your viewers, I'm sure, will enjoy.
Yeah.
My uncle was on the Minneapolis City Council as a Democratic Green Unity ticket while Jesse Ventura was governor of Minnesota.
Ah.
He was in the shit with Mr. Ventura.
I was in the shit. Here, Frank Malekafzali. Malekafzali. I don't think that's his name, but
Oh, no. You're almost close. He was an Irishman, but he did not.
Yeah.
Have the no. No, I mean Ventura's interesting. I truly do have the same wishes you do. If Ralph Nader can't run for I guess like a fucking sixth time because he's old.
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura, I guess, could do it. I mean, what do we got now? What do we got
in terms of third party? I mean, like if they had just if they just get Whitmer, if there's just like a hostile Democrat, even Kamala, you know, at this point, everyone's been going insane with coconut tree memes because it's like it's so bad that Kamala seems like obviously that's the joke, you know.
No. I don't. Oh God, it's like we really are in that kind of shit because like okay,
anything is better, you know. Inanimate carbon rod is better, you know. It's
No, I saw Joe Manchin is not running for president because people I assume thought that might happen. That isn't happening. Claudia De La Cruz, she's like a party for socialism and liberation candidate. I guess that's happening.
Yeah.
Jill Stein's running again.
Poor girl.
For listeners at home, you can't see me, but I'm looking increasingly dejected.
Yeah.
Jill
I could have managed Cornel West's campaign better. Didn't you?
Most people could have. Most people could have seen it. Like they see the People's Party posting like transphobic memes and collaborating with the libertarians, and it's like maybe we should take this like elsewhere. I don't know. I don't know what this is for.
Yeah. It seemed like one of those like very politically confused, like remember Killer Mike's TV show where it was like, what is this saying? What is I don't understand the politics of this show.
There was the only thing I remember from Killer Mike is that like I remember I think like after the protests in Atlanta, he went on TV to do a press conference and he was very clearly like horribly upset and he's just like, can we please put a stop to this?
Yeah.
And then previous weeks, I mean, he's talking about like Black Revolution and like all these different things. It's like, okay, there's maybe there's something complicated here with this man.
Well, he's a socialist, but he's also like a very staunch capitalist, which is very funny. You know, he believes in sort of like 60s, like black socialism derived from MLK, directly from MLK. But he also is like, we need black capitalism in order to get any power, which is, I get there's a big strain of that in, you know, just in like, listen to the story of OJ by Jay-Z and, you know, where that stuff comes from. But I mean, look at me. I know about black America. Listen to my
we chew people. My skin, like I'm not like fully white, but like the color of my skin matches the wallpaper behind me.
We're the authorities on this. Yeah, we're the authorities on this. But Séamus, thank you so much for coming on. I love your work. It's been great to have this conversation with you, and thank you for being so honest about these really depressing times that we're living in. And I feel that however Israel wants to push this forward, we are coming to a point where Biden will have to say no. And at some point, because it's like, I don't know if it's going to be when the casualties enter the six figures, but I am hopeful that it won't get to that point. But still, also with the heaping amount of cynicism that we are dealing with a uniquely fascist country that won't stop. So you have to hold both of those ideas in your head. But thank you for talking about that with it. You're very informed and love your work. And where can people find you?
They can read my work on Séamus-Malekafzali.com. Once this episode goes out, there should be an article up there about Rafa, and there's a backlog of stuff that you can read, I think. And also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can go to Séamus_Malek.
All right, that's great. We'll put those in the show descriptions. And thank you so much for being on. And everyone, turn your minds towards Palestine. It's still going on. And do your best to support in whatever way you can, whether it's donating to charity or advocating on a level. Like you said, every grain of sand in the eye of Israel. I like that line a lot, actually. It's really good. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
House of Decline is brought to you by our $10 tier members. Big fan of noise. Cher, Connor Lane, Constantine Bristow, Daniel Stern, Dat Ash, Dr. Spachemin Zero, Fiat Lux, Height Concept, Jody Shen, Kevin Ott, Kimberly Latrune, Liz Heckmayer, Miles Forrester, Piscadoro, Tor. Thank you for your support, and you will hear me read your names in a robotic voice at the end of episodes from now on.